I'm here today to give my opinion about a very common discussion that inevitably happens every once in a while in the online guitar communities. If this is your first time here, I'm Stipp, I'm a Brazilian guitarist in Australia. 8 years into my guitar journey, went from self-taught to graduating from an international music academy and got lucky enough to learn from a few legends along the way. And now I help intermediate guitarists level up and save time by practicing the right things in the right order. Today's subject is something I personally consider to be a misplacement of focus and just overall energy. I'm talking about people who are guitar players, and this usually happens more with beginner to intermediate players who just spend so much time, focus, and energy into researching, discussing, and consuming content related to guitar specs and technicalities. So stuff like different kinds of wood, string gauges, pickup models, scale length, pick thickness, different fret types, hundreds of different kinds of gadgets and pedals, and much more. So all the stuff that can grab your attention when you start to get further into the guitar world. So there's this whole trend of guitar players being inevitably people who are obsessed with gear and that are always willing to spend some extra money on their setup to get new upgrades here and there and try to improve their tone by an extra 10%. Anyways, it's the gear obsession culture that we tend to have and just keeps getting reinforced on the internet. And by the way, I'm not omitting myself from that. I've absolutely had many phases where basically a good part of my musical existence was checking out this kind of stuff, chatting about that with my friends, and then you also see the people who you look up to getting sponsored by brand X, product Y, and you start to think that maybe that's what you need to finally get some good quality sound out of your playing. And then of course that's the whole purpose of brands that sponsor artists, to connect one thing to the other and make people want to buy the product more. Then it just keeps going. I've come to a conclusion in the past few years, probably around 3 to 4 years ago, that actually what I really wanted to aim for musically was to become a musician who's so good that it wouldn't matter what guitar brand or model I was playing or whatever specs the guitar had, because I'd still be able to play really well regardless of all these things. Does that mean that I don't like nice guitars? Of course not. Although I really don't feel anything special about the more extreme side with these rare, legendary, special edition, deluxe, anniversary, ultra expensive guitars. So just imagine for a moment one of your idols, someone who's an excellent musician. You think that if they picked up a cheap instrument or one that's not necessarily perfectly set up or at least less than ideal, that he or she wouldn't play well and sound good. If you've been playing the guitar for a while, you've probably had a situation where you picked up a guitar somewhere just to noodle around and it turns out that the guitar kind of sucked and what you try to play didn't really sound good. Just think about if someone like Guthrie Govan or Jeff Beck was there in the same room and had the chance to play the exact same shitty instrument in the same conditions. Don't you think they would have killed it? That's because it's about who the musician is. It's about the skills and the knowledge that the person has. And those are enough, more than enough actually, to outweigh the limitations from a bad instrument with bad or less than ideal specs, or running through bad or less than ideal equipment. There would most likely be some negative effect on the playing if the gear was really bad. But the point is that someone who has developed a high level in the guitar in terms of knowledge and skills can make it happen in worse conditions and still sound way above average. And I personally believe this is the best thing to be aiming at, to become someone like that. Many times I'd be wasting time on stuff like figuring out what was the most optimal string gauge or pick thickness in millimeters, let's say, to shred better or cleaner, when in reality I just had to sit down and practice because I could barely understand the instrument well enough to be worrying about something that specific. There's this live stream I watched years ago from Gustavo Guerra, which for those of you who don't know, he's one of the best guitarists in Brazil, where I'm from. I've done 2 of his online courses and something he said really stuck with me. He's like incredibly disciplined and hardworking. And he was talking about this other huge guy called Osielzinho, who's also a local legend. And he said that you could give that guy a broomstick with a piece of string tied to it and he would still get a great sound out of that. Of course, this is an exaggerated way of saying how good the guy is, But that really clicked for me, and I believe there's a lot to be taken from that. So for the last years, I really couldn't have cared less about all these fancy details and little things, and I can say it really served me well. Now, for those who don't know, I'm currently doing a bachelor's degree in audio engineering, and this has been an interesting shift because I had shielded myself so much from getting into anything related to equipment and technology. And looking back, I think I even took it a bit too far, because I stepped back even from some important things, like I didn't even want to spend any time dialing tones or messing around with amp settings, FX or EQ, because all I cared about was getting all the chords, scales and arpeggios down in every key and developing my improvisation skills and techniques and all that kind of stuff. And then when I started my audio engineering journey, let's say, then it was of course all about that. It was the complete opposite. So I started to have to force myself to pay attention to these things until it eventually got more natural. And nowadays I'd say that I have a pretty good balance in terms of enjoying it. This taste and passion for this other side of audio technologies, including everything related to the guitar, really kicked in. But I would say this came at an optimal moment, because by that time I'd already spent lots of hours working on getting my stuff together performance-wise. I remember having this specific conversation with a classmate in the music school I went to. It was probably somewhere around the first half of 2019. He was telling me that he hadn't done any of the study for that week, because every time he had grabbed his guitar, he had just eventually just started to mess around with amp sims and guitar plugins and trying different tones and different effects and different stuff. And he ended up not practicing for the whole week. So I was also glad that at that moment I was at least having a few less distractions. Thinking pattern that I've developed is whenever I'm in a situation where my mind wants to start to blame any piece of gear for the fact that I'm not playing as well as I'd like to just imagine one of my teachers right there at that moment in my place, and I know they would make it happen. And that's deeper, that's different from the first example I gave, where you would picture a guitar hero, because there's this very specific state of mind that at least I get when I witness amazing displays of musicianship in an up and close environment, which is this feeling of, oh, I really can see that this is possible because I'm seeing it happen in person, which is different from watching videos where there's still a certain barrier of context. It's really something else. It's something impressive in a different level to see something you didn't think was possible happening right in front of you. So when I think about my teachers, these are people who I personally saw playing and reacting to complex musical circumstances right before my eyes on scary levels, and absolutely nailing it many times. So having that mental frame helps me to keep myself on track. Anyways, I really hope this was a useful reflection for you and that you could hopefully get some value from that. If you did, then please consider sending this to a friend and hitting subscribe, because this is exactly what I want to do more here in this channel. Real talk about improving as a musician. And I also want to know more about which problems you guys are facing, because hopefully it's something I've been through. So feel free to leave a comment below as well, and I'll see you in the next video.